Hey guys, you're watching TechEdit. I'm Basil and this is the Nothing Phone 2a, a phone that is definitely greater than the sum of its parts. It hasn't got the best, well, honestly, anything, but it kind of still delivers the best experience at the price if you like what Nothing's selling, and that is pure experience. I'm going to dive into this phone in a second, but before I do, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do. It's how you stay on top of everything that I do here at TechEdit. All right, let's talk about this. Nothing Phone 2a is a very stylish phone. Even if you don't like the design, you gotta kind of props to Nothing for going in so hard with this vision. Glyph lights around the back, dot matrix type UI. It hits the same kind of notes as the Nothing Phone 1 and 2, but at a much lower price point, £319. Okay, maybe not much lower, but still lower. How does Nothing hit that price point? Well, starting with the design, this is a plastic phone. It isn't glass and metal. Now, there is some upsides to this. It's light, 190 odd grams, so it's pretty nice and comfortable to hold for long periods for a phone that has a 6.7-inch display. What's also cool is you've got a flat front and back, so fans of flat screens will really appreciate this. But the back kind of 2.5D style curves into the frame, so it feels relatively soft in the hand. This is a pure iPhone's shape, so you've got very rounded corners, and they ease into the palm nicely. So it's quite nice to hold this thing, and the camera bump provides a comfortable place for your finger to rest. But this isn't a good thing. If you take a look at the back, the camera bump's been moved to the middle and lowered. And actually, this is a really bad thing when you're using the ultra wide, especially because my finger kept photo bombing my photos. But that aside, all in all, the design of this thing gets a thumbs up. Let's talk about the glyph lights for a second, because there are fewer than on past Nothing phones. And with no glyph lights in the bottom half, you don't get things like a charging meter that you can see with glyph lights reflecting the phone's charge. But what you do have are 3 strips at the top, and they have loads of lights in them, so you can manage them individually, so they can still do things like give you countdown timers, links with third-party apps like Uber, for example. Nothing's still integrated it in a fun way, and all in all, the design from the lights through to the phone itself look and feel very good. Ports and buttons. At the base, you've got a USB-C. You've got dual speakers on here as well, and it sounds relatively good for the price. And there's a SIM slot with 2 SIMs. There's no eSIM support on here, unfortunately, but on the right side is a power button, and on the left are 2 individual volume buttons. The fact it's got a flat screen, it's got flat sides, mean it doesn't feel as thin as curved screen phones like the Motorola Edge 40 Neo, for example. But that flat screen ensures your content isn't going to be distorted at the sides, and I've had 0 issues with accidental touches. Moving on to the screen, and it's a 6.7-inch AMOLED panel with 120 Hz refresh rate, peak brightness of 1300 nits HDR, 1100 nits auto brightness and high brightness mode, and if you're manually pumping up the brightness, you're going to get around 700 nits. Now, what's really nice about this screen is the fact that it has equal bezels around the side, so your content is nicely anchored. Colors really vibrant, of course they are. This is an OLED display, and it's nice and smooth and responsive as well. I'm really glad Nothing put an HDR toggle on off in the settings, because if you watch my Magic 6 Pro review, you'll have seen that peak HDR brightness shining through even when the total brightness was set low can make for a very uncomfortable viewing experience when watching in the dark. So awesome stuff from Nothing there. It's really good because it's a flat screen for gaming on, watching on, very versatile. And while it probably isn't the brightest, in fact, I know it isn't the brightest you can get at the price, and it probably isn't the hands down best you can get at the price, it still does a very good job and works nicely with the rest of the phone, because I lean towards having a black background with the Nothing phone, because that dot matrix interface really lends itself to it, and that AMOLED technology with those deep inky endless blacks looks really good with it. I wish I loved the camera, because that would have made this phone pretty much a home run, but unfortunately it left me just feeling a little bit underwhelmed in certain areas. The camera is a downgrade from past Nothing phones, and rightly so. This is a cheaper phone. Instead of a Sony primary sensor, you have a Samsung primary sensor. It's still 1/1.56 inches. The secondary ultra-wide camera as well misses out on autofocus, which you had on past Nothing phones. Though the front camera does have the same 32 megapixel snapper as the Nothing Phone 2, so at least there's that. But I'm going to stick with the rear cameras for a second, because first thing, if lighting isn't perfect, this phone can take a while to take a photo. We're used to computational photography telling us to hold steady while our phone takes a picture. This phone does it more than most. The Nothing Phone 2A's photos look very zingy. It's not always a bad thing, but I do prefer the more natural tones the Pixel 7a pulls out. Also, that computational photography can create some pretty extreme HDR looks that make some shadows brighter than some highlights, which we've seen in the past, but a lot of manufacturers are kind of stripping that back. Nothing has a little bit of catching up to do with the processing. And this is especially true when applied to skin tones of people taken in bright environments. It can create a little bit of an uneven look when it brightens up dark circles around eyes, for example. Not talking about myself, definitely talking about myself. But what you also have is the phone can shoot 4K video, wonderful, but it can't shoot 4K 60, can't shoot 4K 30 even from the front, so it's limited to 1080p selfie video. Pixel 7a, yes, it's a pricier phone, but if you care about photos, I would stump up the extra because the camera on that is significantly better, but a lot of that has to do with processing. With a nearest focus distance of about 10 centimeters, you can get a really high impact close-up shot. That 1/1.56 inch sensor is relatively big for the price, so it's going to deliver really decent results, and optical image stabilization obviously will help with that handshake in low light environments. But if your subject's moving in low light environments, if you're moving even not in low light environments, but when the lighting's mixed, then any of the movement will come through. The Nothing Phone isn't quite as good as I wanted it to be for fast moving subjects or even just a shaky hand. I also had some inconsistency with video too. Some 4K video I captured looked good. Stabilization was solid right up to max resolution, but other 4K video looked juddery. So with all of those things considered, this isn't a camera phone home run, but that doesn't hold the phone in general back from being a really great option, and a lot of that has to do with what's inside. Nothing OS 2.5 on top of Android 14. 3 years of software updates, 4 years of security updates, not something you see too often at the price. And also, I love how customizable this is, but still nothing. Lots of dot matrix widgets that really tie in the aesthetic from the industrial design into the experience. Nothing's icon pack, which is integrated, and then you can also bolster from a Google Play Store download, can black and white all of your icons, and it makes the whole interface look and feel less distracting. And from shortcuts to certain focal lengths on your camera, right through to media playback widgets, it's just a very enjoyable, customizable experience. And I think that's the Nothing Phone 2A in a nutshell. It's an experience rather than the best individual element here or there. And that experience lasts a full day thanks to the 5000 milliamp battery inside, which charges at 45 watts. So you get a full charge in around an hour, which is decent for the price. And I love that it's power delivery charging as well. So it's not a proprietary charging system. The lack of wireless charging isn't a bummer for me because at the price, honestly, I wouldn't expect it, though you do get it in the Pixel 7a and the Nothing Phone 1 if you're happy to stump up a little extra cash. The MediaTek 7200 is a 4nm chip that outperforms its comparative Qualcomm Snapdragon chip, the 7S Gen 2, and it's better for gaming. I actually played Genshin Impact on max graphics settings, 60 frames per second, and I had a frame rate counter, and it was punched right down to about 28, 30 frames per second at points. It wasn't the smoothest. I kind of did it to see if it could cope, and I was surprised it was still playable. Ramp down those frame rates, you'll get smooth playback up to 45 frames per second, or even 60 if you lower the graphics enough. For ages, and the phone didn't get hot. So that's pretty commendable for a £319 phone. Full disclosure, I have been testing the higher capacity version, 256 gig storage, 12 gigs of RAM, but that Dimensity 7200 Pro with that Mali G610 GPU is going to be the same. So you should get pretty similar performance. So all things considered, it's really commendable what Nothing's done here. For such a new brand to combine such a very trademark, typical Nothing experience after 2 generations in a £320 phone, hats off. But that's not to say this phone is perfect. The plastic design won't be for everyone. I didn't mind that one bit. Also, the camera positioning, definitely not for me. If you like to take ultra wide photos, probably won't be for you unless you're okay with some finger photo bombing. And the camera performance in general will leave you waiting a little bit as you hold your phone still to take the shot. And also, it's not going to be quite as versatile across photos and videos as some other phones at the price. Nevertheless, if you don't want to be stumping up extra for the Pixel, you like the look of this phone, and you're okay with everything that I said wasn't perfect about it, I think you'll really enjoy the Nothing Phone 2a. It is a charming experience and one that is truly unique, especially at the price point. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, click that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. It's how you stay on top of everything that I do. And if you've got any questions about the Phone 2a, leave them in the comments section below. Thanks for watching.